Welcome to the Women's Yoga Council of India podcast. Where we explore the vibrant world of yoga, health, and wellness. We are a sangha of women involved in the field of yoga. In this podcast, we'll be speaking with inspiring individuals who are shaping the yoga industry, innovating in health, and transforming the way we think about mental and physical well-being. From ancient practices to modern research, from personal stories to industry insights, we'll shed light on what's happening in the yoga space and tackle topics that matter today. Whether you're a yoga enthusiast, a wellness professional, or simply curious about how these fields intersect, this podcast is for you. Let's dive in, uncover new perspectives, and learn together. Vanakkam and Namaste. Hello, everyone. I'm Soumya, and I'm your host today. I hail from a long matrilineage of spiritual seekers, and being in the field of yoga is my blessing from my foremothers and my karmic responsibility. I am the president of Women's Yoga Council of India. I also run Praful Urja Charitable Foundation, which trains yoga therapists to serve in communities in vulnerable conditions. Currently, I'm a researcher in the field of yogini sanghas and diplomacy. Today, we have with us Uma Subramaniam. Uma is a veteran yogi and teacher of yoga in many modern forms, with deep roots in traditional and authentic yoga education, practices, and philosophies. Uma holds 2 master's degrees, an MA in Vedanta from Karnataka Samskrita University, and an MSc in Yogic Sciences from Annamalai University. Uma is a registered Yoga Alliance teacher trainer, ERYT 500. She's also certified in children's yoga and prenatal yoga teacher trainer. I am proud to say Uma is also certified by Praful Urja to teach children with special needs and work with other communities as well. Uma has taught over 15,000 hours of Hatha Yoga, Pranayama, Yoga Nidra, meditation practices. Her most recent body of teaching is on yoga philosophy, Yoga Nidra, yoga history, and teaching methodology for modern day practice and health benefits. More than anything else, Uma is a friend and a lifelong mentor to many, celebrating her 31st wedding anniversary this week. She is grateful to be in Minneapolis, Minnesota, close to her children, and for the many opportunities to continue her chosen path of sharing knowledge and experience with yoga. In today's episode, Uma will give us insights into careers in the yoga industry. She will also talk about the differences and similarities in the yoga industry in India and the US briefly. And Uma, thank you so much for being here today for the inaugural episode of the Women's Yoga Council of India podcast. Thank you, Uma.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namasarvebhya. Namaste, Soumya.
Namaste, Uma. It's great to have you here.
Let's
go ahead and get started.
Me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. It's our honor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. I'm deeply honored to be part of Women's Yoga Council of India once again as a former member and now as a friend and a fellow yogini from Bharatvarsha. Feels like a lifetime ago, but I remember so vividly how hard you worked to make Praful Urja a vibrant yoga community. You are my hero for selfless work, Soumya.
Thank you very much, Uma. So yeah, we've known each other for over 12 years now, and we've collaborated on several different platforms, several different topics. And so I'd like to know, before you were involved with yoga, you were in the finance sector and in advertising. So tell me more about
Mm.
your journey to becoming a yoga teacher and a trainer, and also, if I may say, a leader in the field. What brought you to yoga and why did it stick?
Well, my entry into formal yoga space started in 2008 when I moved back from the US to Bangalore after 15 years of living here. I was looking forward to some self care physically and mentally. I was 38 years old after two kids and working full time corporate. Moving back home was a gift, a boon, a blessing. Just a few months of yoga, asana, and pranayama practice melted away so much strain and health problems that I really wanted to share this wonderful art, science, and tradition with all the women I knew and didn't know. I knew right then that this yoga is all that every woman needs: good health, peace, a sense of fulfillment wherever they
Right,
are in their lives, you know.
right.
And as time and space would have it, with the blessings and support of my family, I started work with one yoga studio that became six in a short period of time. My second innings at yoga that I started as a child with my father in Chennai came back in
Okay.
my life, or perhaps, yeah, I fell right back on the path, you know. And to answer your last part of the question, why did it stick? I can't help being a little bit, bringing my Vedanta, experience. Um, it would reveal that I always was, and so I am. So I'll keep the cryptic talks for another time. But
Hmm.
why did it stick? Is still a big question, you know. Yeah.
It's, well, it was meant to be. It was meant to be.
Yeah. Right.
So tell us something. If somebody is new to the path of yoga and interested, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah. There's so many people enter the path of yoga for so many reasons. Um, to maintain health, beauty these days, for therapy or rehab, to explore career opportunities. Some others, or few others know it as a path of self-inquiry. Whatever be the reason to explore this path, I would say keep at it. Do not stop. Do not hesitate or doubt. All that you are looking for is very much here. It takes time, but you don't need to look further. It's not everyone who will turn to this
Right.
path. Those who do come with shraddha, as the scriptures say, a
Hmm.
mind conducive to advancement. It's an undertaking, and we have to be ready to be accommodative. And nityam karmang, nityam kuru karmatvam. Continue to do your duties to the best of your abilities. No need to give up your duties because you have taken the spiritual path. At that same time, no need to excuse yourself from the spiritual practices because they are in the way of your worldly engagements. So continue on the path is what I would say to every beginner that comes on this path.
To really consider it as maybe you're taking baby steps to getting to where you need to go.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not instant gratification in this. There's no instant gratification in this, except on the mat, few yoga poses, you get that dopamine rush, but that's just the beginning.
right, right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is definitely just the tip of the iceberg, as you have mentioned to me several times. What
Right.
do you feel are the necessary qualifications then for somebody to become a yoga teacher, and why? So,
Mm.
if being on the mat is just the tip of the iceberg, what more do people need to know to become the yoga teacher?
Right. Right. So, traditionally, Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhana. Okay. These are six qualities of, spiritual development, not, even for the seeker, for the beginner, for, somebody who's on the path. So you can imagine for a yoga teacher,
Yeah,
it would mean much more than this. This is just the beginning, So
right.
traditionally, again, not to throw terms at you, I'm coming to simplify the terms.
Thank you. Yes,
Traditionally,
I
a
think.
guru, is a Shrotriya and a Brahmanishta, is what we say. Okay, so a teacher is one who has been revealed the highest knowledge directly, from direct sources. He understands it well and has been applying the knowledge himself in his life always. He's initiated into the sampradaya to continue the flow of traditional knowledge from teacher to student. This is tradition. Okay. Now, in the present context, I won't forget. In the present context, a yoga teacher is someone who continues his studies well beyond the RYT, 200, 300, 500, 800, whatever is out there, in addition to daily regular practice of everything that is taught in a good certification program. You know, the certificate is just the tip of the iceberg, just like, you mentioned. For the question, why continuing the teacher training is important. Let me give you a scenario. An 18-year-old or even a 20-year-old yoga teacher takes up an RPYT certification or a prenatal yoga teacher certification, right? To teach
Okay.
yoga to pregnant women. To teach yoga to pregnant women. She's unmarried and has no children. Okay? So, what qualifies her to teach yoga to a group of pregnant women is just 30 hours in a classroom, a certificate that you get, in 30 hours in the classroom. I mean, it doesn't mean that married women with children make better yoga teachers. What
Sure.
I'm just giving you an example is becoming a yoga teacher is an organic, ever growing phenomenon. It
Mm.
begins way before the first day of your certification program, and it never ends, even after you graduate.
Mm. And then, but then we do still hear about continuing education programs and
Right.
getting, trained in higher levels and going deeper. So, what is that role of the continuing education, and what are some of the areas that somebody can add to their qualifications?
Right. I don't mean to diss certification programs and stuff like that. Okay.
No,
I have
definitely.
an analysis. Yeah. I have done that. You see the list of things that I have done too, and I
Sure.
have taught
Yeah.
certification programs definitely. But I let me give you an example or an analogy that I always share with my students. The yoga that we do is like singing the ABC song. ABCDEFG. Okay, the idea of the alphabet song, let's call it that, if it is, yeah, and is
Yeah.
that once you know your ABCs, or even in the Do Re Mi song, you can sing most anything once you know your ABCs or once you know your do re mi's, right?
Sure.
In any, yeah, and these days in any yoga session or in any certification program, for the past 30 years, if I may say so, we've been taught the alphabet song. Okay, we've been taught our
Yeah.
alphabet song, and we continue to propagate that alphabet song. We continue to propagate that alphabet song. It's a great beginning. But for progress in yoga, to accept the full potential and realize our limitless nature, we need to make CAT cat, BAT bat, way past the ABC song. We need to work towards framing sentences, paragraphs, and books. This is why we need continuing education, you know.
This is
Uh,
These analogies are just absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much.
yeah, yeah. So, if I may add, can a teacher explain the meaning of the word immortal? Atma is immortal. For example, if you study that in your yoga path, immortal. Can you explain the meaning of the word immortal with other words like what is the meaning of immortal? Eternal, supreme, spiritual. The meanings of these words also are not known to the student, you know. So a learned teacher would use ordinary known words. They will create a context which enables these words show the student their limitlessness. Okay, so direct knowledge from scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Sutra, or even recent texts like Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Yoga Taravali, these offer deeper and well-rounded knowledge beyond asana. And so continuing education should turn you towards these.
And what about other certifications that somebody could also participate in? Do you consider that would also be able to add and deepen somebody's knowledge and their wisdom in the field?
Absolutely. So I don't know if you want to take my own example. I just started doing my yoga practice, and I realized the benefits of it. A lot of people would immediately realize that, oh, this is something that comes so well and easy, and I would like to become a yoga teacher. I would like to teach
Yeah.
yoga, and as I said earlier, it's a lot more than realizing that you are flexible and you can do the yoga poses well. So you learn, and even at that time, I felt that I need a lot more information than just a short 1 month program, or a 15-21 day program. So that's why I did my master's in yogic sciences. It was a 2 year program, you know, and with the children, 2 children and a dog, and just moving back to India, I decided that I need to learn this well before I start teaching. And once I completed my MSc, then I realized there are certification programs that standardize teaching methodologies, and so it's a good idea to do the TTC, YTT programs. And so um, we have the 200 and 500 RYT programs. Then I also wanted to teach pregnant women and children. And so there are specific programs, and particularly handling children with special needs, is yet again an important program to go through. I learned so much. You would think that having children and being an older woman would train you to, for everything, but it's not. Okay. So these are important things. There are other auxiliary things that yoga teachers can certify themselves in. It will take a lot more time, like getting the right clinical certificates for clinical therapy. If you want to be a what is it, the life coach. Life coach is something big. So again, there are some
Yeah.
don'ts and do's, laws that you'll have to adhere to when you deal with other people than yourself. So when it comes to a
Definitely.
profession, when it comes to, yeah, other than your own path, then definitely there are things that people have to take up, to continue teaching.
Yeah, and I think that also differs from country to country, region to region. I know in
Absolutely.
the US
Right.
there are certain requirements for a yoga teacher to run their own
Right.
studio or even teach in another studio. Whereas in
Right.
India there's a different set of certifications. So I think it also varies from place to place.
Right.
So outside of
Right.
yoga teaching, what other jobs have you held in the industry, in the yoga industry?
Yeah. So, yeah, I never stuck to just asana on the mat, teaching just yoga sessions, So while managing the yoga studios in Bangalore, yeah. So I have done everything under the sun, cleaning up the studios, recruiting, training, HR duties for teachers that we hire, or contract teachers, visiting teachers. I have done the advertising for the yoga programs, teacher training, program management, event management when it comes to graduation. I worked with
Oh,
government
nice.
entities, yeah, when we had to certify ourselves, for Ayush. Um, and I've worked with corporates, medical world, donned every possible hat. During COVID times, though, I did experience complete online teaching, and I did end-to-end design with startups. A lot of people were going, away from the studios, working from home. So there were a lot of
Yeah.
the startup boom, particularly for medical issues, happening. And so I did the end-to-end design, implementation, and recommended strategies to position yoga and mental well-being as part of Bangalore-based startups' war against lifestyle diseases. You know,
Oh,
then
very nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Especially at
I
a time
consulted.
during COVID.
Exactly, exactly. And I consulted as yoga expert with another Bangalore-based startup for women's mental and physical health, particularly during menopause. Yeah. Uh,
I I
right.
myself have joined some of those programs, so I can definitely appreciate the work that you've done there. And
Right.
what are your
Yeah.
lessons, some of your lessons from managing? What have you learned from managing Bangalore's first uh, chain of yoga studios?
Yeah.
Because
So
that's
startup.
actually where we first met.
Right, indeed. Um, yeah. Startups are like children, Soumya, in need of constant, unabating attention. Many a times I've had to decide whether to be a yogi, withdrawn and, on my own path, um, or, should I juggle with being a businesswoman, trying to um, be successful in the yoga studio attempt. Our vision at the yoga studios was global. It was for yoga, yeah, and for all yoga teachers to function as
Yeah.
one cohesive force, sharing the most authentic knowledge and to make the world a better place, one yogi at a time. It is still possible,
Oh,
but
okay.
we need a bigger force to bring that kind of oneness that yoga stands for. Like what you are doing with the Women's Yoga Council. It takes time, and it takes incessant, constant work. And people need to realize it's for their own good, and it's not any other motive behind this. So it takes time.
Sure. And I do thank you for saying that. I do think that one of the things that we see as the council is that we are right now of India, and that too mostly Karnataka, but we do want to slowly expand and be able to encompass, like you said, and unite all of the, especially the women yoga people in the field of yoga. Um,
Right.
so, what are some of the other careers in the field of yoga besides teaching, and where do you think there is the most need now and going forward? If you're thinking, as a visionary for the future.
Right. Yeah, and again, I'm always encouraging people to think beyond the mat. And my ABC story is that there's a lot more to yoga than asana practice, right? So yoga teachers
You,
can yeah, make a big difference in the mental health space, much needed mental health space, not only in the West, I see in India also. Mental health space is something that is, needing a lot of attention. And with correct certification and licenses, that is something where yoga teachers can make a lot of improvement, because yoga is something that does not differentiate between bodily needs, physiology, and
Mhm.
then mind. It's always a
Right.
combination. It's always together, and so that is the best approach for physical ailments as well as mental ailments. So yoga teachers can definitely do a lot in that space. These days are a lot of content developers needed for so many, online magazines, blogs, um, video logs, or podcast apps, things like what we are also
We're involved
exploring.
in. Yeah, yeah,
Right? Uh,
absolutely.
yeah,
It would
right,
definitely. So can I
right.
ask you then, where do you see your own self going in the next 5 to 10 to 15 years,
Mm.
especially
So,
having
I mean,
recently shifted to the US?
right. So I would still like to, bring out the best of yoga beyond the mat. And I recently have been, let's say, discussing and reading out the Bhagavad Gita. I have done that about 7 times now. And each time I learn so much while I share. And I keep telling my students to come back to the classes again and again so that, they can see that I have
Mhm.
also grown,
Yeah, you
and
can go
this,
deeper.
right, right. And,
Yeah.
and, and to me, learning the scriptures, the Apta Vachana, the right from the source, that is so important. And it trains you, it prepares you, or it makes you grow in such a different way than just the yoga practice, which is still the beginning, which is the very beginning, and that's how it is supposed to be. And everything else falls into place as you continue your studies. And so my work will be in that space. Of course, I'm always teaching yoga on the mat, and I'm always training people to be yoga teachers. And I'm a natural mentor. I can't stop talking.
Yes, definitely. You've
And,
mentored me a lot as
yeah.
well. So, and just the encouragement that you always give, that positivity, really makes a difference. So
Right.
I noticed, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, other areas that yoga teachers can find opportunities are bridge health entities are getting big now. So post COVID,
Okay,
hospitals were so jammed with people, and not
sure.
able to catch up with the needs that there are between the home and the hospital. There are many health entities that are actually promoting self-care, yoga, working out, proper diet, lifestyle changes. So there are a lot of places that are looking for holistic approach, and people trained in that. So that is something that you'll have to look out for it, and find yourself there. Okay, there is always yoga, more and more yoga these days in schools and colleges, university rec centers. That's
Mhm.
someplace I have been. And recently I've also looked at clinical research. So experienced people will bag the clinical study itself, but yoga teachers can provide and also learn and train, with the clinical research area. And of course, yoga philosophy, like I do, opens non-asana based teaching opportunities, you know, improvement for
Mhm.
yourself, at the same time sharing the knowledge um, to people who are looking for certifications or studying past their YTTs. So that is something that will be
Yeah.
good.
Thank you so much for these insights, Uma. And I actually, the fact that you've noticed that there has been an increase of health entities or health organizations in society outside of the hospital, between, like you say, between the home and the hospital, there's so many
Bridge,
health
yeah,
entities. Would you
yeah,
the
yeah.
bridge? Yeah. Would you say that that is about it, that is both in India and the US? Would, or do you see a difference, or do you find that
No,
in both
absolutely.
places?
Absolutely. I recently consulted, with a company, such a company in India, to again how to get
Okay.
the maximum number of people open their eyes to the benefits of yoga. So that was what I consulted with my experience
Yeah.
from the Thousand Yoga Times, and yeah, in the US also, where I am, I see that a lot,
Okay.
and
Okay.
yeah, definitely.
You've alluded a few times to the ABCs, which I, and to children. And now you've also mentioned that you think that there's a lot of opportunity to teach in schools and colleges. What sort of classes are available? I know you're fairly new to the US, but in the US, what's available? At what level are people getting trained or being taught? What are they studying in universities versus schools? And what about in India, where I know you have a lot more experience in the yoga industry?
About yoga, you're talking about what people are doing in yoga.
Yes.
Yeah, in India, people are still doing. the YTT programs. A lot of people are doing their BSc, MSc, and PhDs in yoga also. Um,
Okay.
uh, I done that so myself, and I've taught some of them in
Yeah.
universities, right? So then I think the government of India, Ministry of Ayush, is also offering certificate programs now.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be yoga teachers, and similar things are happening here in the US. The YTTs are omnipresent in schools.
Hmm.
Schools, it's for children. Yoga is a practice along with other things that they do, art and dance and sports. So that's what I understand. Yoga is a part only in few
Yeah.
schools. At least meditation or mindfulness or silencing, remaining quiet. All of these are small parts of yoga practice.
Very
In
nice. Yeah.
colleges here, yeah, universities, yoga is also offered as part of the uh, other kinetic movement based graduate programs or graduation programs. So I see that hatha
Yeah.
yoga, yoga and holistic treatment of health is definitely prevalent in many of the universities, and I am
Yeah.
trying to work with
Right.
the yeah university here also, to
Wonderful.
see how I can bring in my favorite subjects out there in addition to yoga on the mat. Yeah.
I think they would be very blessed to have you uh, join, and
Okay.
be able to teach, because you really know how. As far as I've known you for the last more than a decade, I've seen that you're able to mentor the people who are younger than you, people who are older than you, and you're able to kind of connect with people and bring out what they need in yoga, from the field of
Mm.
yoga. So you're able to offer
I
asanas to somebody else Sanskrit, somebody else some philosophy. So you're able to kind of bridge that, yeah, be that bridge between others and your students basically, and the field of yoga. So I think they should be very great, very lucky to have you.
thank you, Soumya. That's so kind. I am just a messenger. I'm passing on. I've had wonderful teachers, and the energy just flows. Thank you. Yeah.
So I recently heard a podcast of yours from a few years ago. It's called Let's Talk Yoga, and it's hosted by Arundhati Vaidnagar. And in that,
Mm.
you concisely explain the margas of yoga, that is the paths. And so I'd like to go a little bit deeper and ask you how you see these careers that you've been speaking about, how you see them positioned within these margas.
Mm. So karma, bhakti, jnana, raja yoga, each path suitable for a different kind of yogi. The question is amazing, to relate. How do people understand themselves and prepare themselves? That's really wonderful. The answer is, again, I make everything sound simple, but it is just like how every yogi can explore each path one at a time. Karma, bhakti, jnana, raja.
Sure.
You can explore it one at a time or simultaneously. You can be a karma yogi and still be a bhakti yogi. You can be a bhakti yogi and still be
Absolutely.
a raja yogi. So you can do all four simultaneously and arrive at the same destination, right? Same way, sometimes the job market and opportunities may dictate what you try. Yeah, it's not always like this is what I
Sure.
want to do. You don't want to be, yeah, too hard on things, and the job market and the place where you are is what going to drive a lot of what you want to do or what you can do. Other times you can start off
Very
by
true.
building small, and not necessarily kowtow to the requirements. So you can start a connection with a few students, through different types of classes that you would like to explore yourself, asana classes. And even when everybody is looking for asana as yoga, it's okay, take it that way, and then slowly introduce a little more theory or philosophy workshops. You can start with weekend retreats, short ones, just with your students, and then go into longer retreats. And then you can go into historical retreats, like what you are planning in Orissa, with the
Yeah.
tell me again, remind me, refresh my memory. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we Pragya Bhatt and I are planning a study tour of um, uh, Yogini, Achausat Yogini Temple
Right,
in Ranipur, Jarial, yeah, in Odisha.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'd
yeah.
love
That
to
is
have you join us
so.
for that.
Yeah, definitely. And so these are, very specific and very intense and very deeply involved. And to get there, it takes a lot of study and experience, to come up with such unbelievable ideas and possibilities, And so time will determine the yogi's inclination towards physical and high energy classes versus classes appealing to subtler energies. You can explore into pranayama, yoga nidra, meditation, and such. As your nature, not true nature, but your gunas, characteristics, sattva, rajas, and tamas gunas change, or transform. A lot of yoga teachers are also exploring sound baths, yoga in art forms, stuff like that. Yoga in cooking, yoga in everything, So invariably, all yoga teachers start on the mat, start with asana classes,
Mhm.
depending on their swadhyaya, personal interest, and inquisitive nature, curiosity to learn,
Yeah.
continuing education, and interest of the teacher, which actually depends on the Guru Shishya Parampara or the lineage that you trained in. Your teacher is always your inspiration, you know, and so the yoga teacher
Yeah.
can expand their horizon to include many facets of yoga. So choose the right teacher, choose the right training that you take, so that you're not stuck with just the smallest and the the least part of the training. Some may find yoga in their current corporate job, in their duty as a parent, or just as a good citizen.
Mhm.
Yoga teachers can work with animal welfare, veteran welfare, homelessness, environment awareness, global warming, global village, and One Earth projects. So there is really no
Yes.
limit, to apply the what you learn from yoga.
Yeah, I really love how you included environmental issues, animal issues, because it's not necessarily just that yoga is for, I've always felt that yoga is not only for, as you said, it's not just on the mat. There's also everything that comes off of the mat that leads you, to a better place on that mat. And, and that actually can guide how you work, how you do your duty as a parent. And you can teach, as a yoga teacher, if you've experienced parenthood, you can teach how to do your duty better as a parent. You can teach how to be in the corporate world or in a workplace setting better. You can teach, um, you can be a part of environmental projects because you see that oneness, the unity. Um,
Mm.
which really is the core of yoga. Um,
I told you you're my hero. And you started Prafulurja just because you ran into a little boy and the parents said, "Oh,
yes.
be careful with him," and he's not the usual type that you talk to, and that was a big eye opener
It
for you.
was,
And yes,
yes, yes, definitely. I mean, I never in my life thought, when we're growing up, we never think, oh yeah, when I'm older, I want to be a yoga teacher for children with special needs. We're
yeah,
not thinking about things like that. And that career in India or that opportunity wasn't even there. And I was
right.
so grateful for to this child. So yoga as a career is actually it's extremely new. Um, and yet you've been in it for nearly 2 decades. and you've really seen it grow over the last 2 decades. You've built your own repertoire. As you mentioned, you were in startups, you were in as a yoga expert, you were in the back end of running yoga, a chain yoga studio, and a yoga school. How can our listeners and yoga enthusiasts find the right career for them in the field of yoga, the one that fits them right? And how do they know what type of personality? Do they have sattva, raja, or tamasa guna? How do they know that? And what are the skills that are required for these?
Well, yeah, again, as I mentioned earlier, the call to the path of yoga is not for everyone. While some people start yoga as a career option, eventually the practice defines the premise, all teachers are not going to be the same way. While modern yoga practice has formed the idea of yoga teacher as a stereotype based on physical appearance, right? A yoga teacher is someone
Yeah,
actually
definitely.
who so a yoga teacher is someone who is compassionate, honest, humble, open to change, open to think and act out of the box, creative, accepting of different, creative in the sense seeing opportunities where others wouldn't, radical thinkers sometimes perhaps, accepting of differences, sincere in their practice and observances, and someone who lives by example. I mean, this is a place to start, or yoga could teach you all this, or if you're already this, then yoga is the place that you want to be.
Hmm, great, great.
Yeah.
So I just want to just briefly, I don't want you to, I know you're new coming into the field of yoga in the US, but how are you gauging the field in the US, the industry in the US, and as compared to your experiences in India?
So I've been here in the US a little over a year now, and there's plenty of yoga here too, just like back in India. And so too, there's a lot more to be done. There can be a lot more that can be done, is what I would say. I've been very comfortable in my space wherever I travel for yoga, Soumya. It doesn't have to be, just India, US. I don't make geographical differences. I've traveled
Got
to
it.
Europe also, and yeah, and I've never really paid attention to what is similar, what is different here. But I'm afraid it's also too early for me to share experiential information in this regard right now. But I have met some of the most wonderful people, and particularly, I have to say, I have met Dr. Betsy Rippenthorpe, whom we should bring, you know, to your series to talk about growth of yoga in her eyes over the past 20 years or so.
Great,
We could
great. Yeah.
have a, yeah, you could moderate this, and we could talk about how things are in India, and she could give you the expert information about what's going on in this yoga world. She's been here for a long time. A
Okay.
great soul indeed. Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Great. Yeah, I'd love to have her contact and get in touch with her later. Um,
Definitely we'll do that.
Thank you so much, Uma. And I've got last couple of questions that I'd like to ask going forward to all of our uh, podcast interviewees or our speakers. As a concluding question, I'd like you to tell us your hopes for the Women's Yoga Council of India and for this podcast, and really for all the women of the world in the field of yoga.
Mm. Soumya, you have been relentless with your energy and enthusiasm, and the Women's Yoga Council is rising again with renewed vigor. Through these podcasts that you have lined up. The Women's Yoga Council is a world-class idea that all yoga teachers should embrace and support and participate in. While there are so many paid international organizations that yoga teacher may need to subscribe for the sake of teaching opportunities and adherence to industry standards. The Women's Yoga Council stands as an all welcoming, equal opportunity organization for all yoga teachers, to discuss, deliberate, rally up the united strength and kinship of the yoga fraternity, to achieve, to share, to grow together. Um, I think it's a good idea to join when it's still a free membership, eh?
And yeah, especially if it's a sorority, and not to say that it's not a fraternity, but a sorority of
Right,
sorts.
right,
Um,
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, great. Thank you so much for those kind words, Uma. Um, we want to also ensure that whoever is listening today or watching later is not just stimulated intellectually, also has the opportunity for experiences, at least for a few moments, about the lessons which you have spoken about. Would you like to share any practical exercise or any last takeaway task that can help our listeners put these insights into action? Either a short
Certainly,
practice or a couple of takeaway tasks.
right, right. So, now let's I much that I keep telling that yoga on the mat is just the beginning. That is the right beginning. That is the very beginning. And so complete your basic certification from a good school after much thought and research, and
Okay,
start teaching. That is, once you teach, two people learn. That's what they say, because you are also learning and growing as a teacher.
definitely. Yeah.
um, Continue to be with a mentor. That is important. Don't just finish and then go off on your own. You know, Keep
Mm.
a mentor. There you just need to look further. There are not too many people who have so much time to, give you, attention sometimes. But you can find people who will gladly be your mentor. Continue your education and don't just complete certifications. And there's a difference. There's a difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And explore away from the mat always into tried and tested methods. Creativity sometimes is overhyped. So whatever you try something new, are you just doing something very similar that is, novel? That's not what I mean. So I mean, explore away from the mat and try tested methods of doing yoga, in the same Ashtanga path. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I would
Wonderful.
say.
Wonderful.
Yes.
I think that gives a lot of scope to our listeners, gives them really a clear cut path on what they can, where they can start, and then what other activities they can get involved in. Uma, this
And
was
I
a
am
very,
always available, Soumya. Yeah. I mean, if anyone has any questions, you can leave my email address, with this. And I know you're always in touch with me. And I welcome any,
yeah,
relevant questions. And sometimes these podcasts, just make me nervous, and I don't always end up saying everything that I would
fine.
like to, or it's still limiting. So everything is organic, takes some time. So I'm available for any further
Thank
questions.
Thank you very much, Uma. And I really hope that, people take this to heed, because Uma really is there for people. She, even despite being halfway around the world, she still answers my phone calls and checks messages and emails. And we've been in touch even in the last 1.5, 2 years when you've been abroad. And we've met even, a couple times in different places outside of our homes as well. This was a really insightful conversation, Oma. I think whether someone is new to the field or has been teaching for donkey's years, we are all looking to grow and establish ourselves, our names, and our work. We're also looking for new ways to approach yoga and new ways to discover yoga. And I've really enjoyed listening to the ideas that you've presented today about the different margas, the different gunas, about the different paths that and career opportunities that people might take. I know that other our viewers will enjoy this podcast as well. And I hope everybody has enjoyed today's episode. I invite you to follow Women's Yoga Council of India on social media and contact us for more information. Thank you and have a good day or a good night. I'm just going to put up a final slide.